This is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Welcome to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Your host, Felice Gerwitz, is an author, a publisher, and your radio show host. She will encourage, educate, and inspire you with answers to your most pressing questions, from homeschool, marriage, parenting, and much more. Felice loves to equip moms to live a Christian life because every moment counts. Be sure to visit her website at mediaangels.com. And here's your host, Felice Gerwitz.
Hey everyone, and welcome. This is Felice Gerwitz with Vintage Homeschool Moms, and today I have a very special guest on the line that I'll bring in just a moment. I want to thank our sponsor, the Wisdom Wonder Project. You can find out more information at wisdomwonderproject.org. And they also have some videos that are available on YouTube. So you can go to youtube.com/Wisdom Wonder Project. And today we are going to be talking about the foundations of learning and bringing beauty into learning. And I'm excited to talk about this because anything academic and learning in kids is high on my list. And my guest today is Ann Dillon. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Felice. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm always excited to come on and talk about our project.
Oh, I am as well. And so you are a homeschool mom and a longtime teacher. So tell us a little bit about how you got to this point of having this amazing curriculum that is available for parents.
Yeah, I think it's fun to start with how I became a homeschool mother because it was very accidental. I am a longtime teacher. I've been teaching for 25 years, and we moved to a new home, the beautiful central coast of California, and had my first child. And when he was about 2.5, it was time for me to get back to work. And I found a really lovely school, San Luis Obispo Classical Academy, that was a hybrid program where students were homeschooled part-time and taught on campus. So I was able to go back to teaching part-time. My 2.5-year-old and I were just glued together at the hip. And so in order to prepare for my classroom teaching, all of the materials that I needed to read to be prepared, I had my son on my lap and read all those materials to him. So he was hearing Greek mythology, story of the world, Leaf the Lucky, all these beautiful books. And I was able to see firsthand how the mind of a child, when given beautiful, luxurious literature and materials, that mind just lights up, and kids love to learn. So I just was sort of like in a little learning laboratory. And as I continued working at Slow Classical Academy, my second child came along, my daughter. So my son is now in high school, and my daughter is a 6th grader. And I love my home teaching days just as much as I love my on-campus teaching days. So that's how I got here.
That's so great. And so you were actually teaching at the same school your children attended. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes,
yeah.
And that's just been so wonderful.
Now, the best of both worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And so, as we were talking before we went on air, and you were sharing with me some of the beauty of learning, I asked you, and I was leading you through, where do you, pull from? Like, were you classical or Charlotte Mason, and so you kind of shared a little bit about that and your philosophy and foundations of learning for children. So share that with us.
Yeah, so we are definitely influenced by Charlotte Mason, which is, I believe, a very gentle approach to learning while keeping learning quite rigorous. And it's what attracts us at Wisdom Wonder Project to that style of learning is the nature to which it is very developmentally appropriate, so that at each age and stage when something is awakening in children and their minds are ready, the curriculum that we are providing them is meeting them right where they are. And it is classically based, but we feel that the Wisdom Wonder Project curriculum can be implemented in any home, whether families are, leaning towards classical or leaning towards Charlotte Mason or not leaning towards that at all. What we really tried to do was find the most beautiful, accessible approach to learning with sort of tried, tested, true methods to really help children, first of all, light their fire to love learning, and then second of all, move in the direction of mastery. And this is what we've pulled together with Wisdom Wonder.
It's like a tall order as I'm listening to you here. I'm going, gosh, I want to do that. And so, and I know right now, the way your school is set up, that you are growing and have stages. And again, a lot of these important dates that are coming up for your, Wisdom Wonder project, as well as different things that you're going to be launching. We're going to have all of that information on our website so that we can keep that updated. And of course, listeners, go to wisdomwonderproject.org and get on their mailing list and start following them, and you'll get that firsthand. Because I realize you guys have some great things like a daily email with free lessons and resources and so forth. But I think what I loved as I was talking to you was how you made learning sound so enticing and so wonderful. And it brought to mind too, especially with younger children, homeschool moms sometimes struggle. I know I did when I was homeschooling my kids, and I had, the two older children, and then I had my third and then fourth and then fifth. And I have a background in, elementary ed and early childhood. So I loved working with kids, like even doing some psychological things, because you could see where their learning level was very easily, giving them things like, the half cup, showing them a different size cups that have the same amount of water and saying, are these, which cup has more? And they're always going to point to the taller cup, right? Because it looks like it does.
Right, that's that conservation.
Right. And so, I always felt a little guilty doing these things, but it was so much fun to me. And I loved it. And then, when child 3 came along and 4, I was realizing I don't have as much time to do some of these things. So you shared with me some of what you have for the children. And one of the things was in the area of math. And I know you were sharing with me that some of the YouTube videos that are available have the Singapore math. And so explain to me a little bit about that, the philosophy behind using that particular curriculum, and why you picked that one.
Yeah, so if we just start with like sort of the hard, cold fact that in Singapore they just teach math. It's not Singapore math; it's just their math. And then we have developed that curriculum and brought it over to the United States. But using the method of teaching that they use, which I'll get into in just a moment, they were able to skyrocket themselves to the top of, they're some of the best, they have some of the best math scores in the world. That was not always the case. So, 10, 15 years ago, they were a more poor performing country. They really dedicated themselves to improving that. So the program's very research-based to start. But I like to get to the more organic core of Singapore math, which is that all of the teaching begins in this very concrete manner, not just for the youngest children, but all the way on up into 6th grade math. We're always starting with something that we can move with our hands and see visually. And if we get back to sort of the beauty of learning, we have all these different learning modalities that are available to all of us. Some of us are more auditory, some of us are more kinesthetic, some more visual. The Singapore math program really addresses all those learning styles in one, because of this foundational beginning with concrete materials. So we have started with the kindergarten videos because we really feel like we want to help people understand that math is something so much more than just numbers. We think of that like, 2 + 2 = 4, that's math. But if we get back to sort of what is developmentally appropriate at the different ages and stages, kindergartners love to categorize. They love to stack. They love to compare. They love to talk about color. They love to put things in front of, behind, underneath, over. And we are really able to bring all of that to life in the video series that we're doing. And we know that as we move forward and add other levels, ages and grades, that is available right there to us to meet the developmental stages of children at each level. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. It does. And it also explains too, what I think is really important is that you have to look at your child developmentally, because a lot of times we'll try something, and if we meet with a lot of frustration, we back off, which is okay for, maybe a time, but then to reintroduce it. I used to tell my children that if they know it, it's easy, and if they don't know it, it means they need to learn it, and I had, different ways I would say that, and then they would, finally just groan and say, okay, Mom, we know, what that is. And so sometimes pushing them a little bit and having something that is aesthetically pleasing. You were explaining to me too, that children love to watch these videos because they're so beautiful. So share with me, share with the listeners a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so when we were casting the vision for the videos, we felt like sort of on a more practical level, some of the things that were needed were Singapore math has a whole different language around mathematics that it uses. So there's this sort of instructional need to help families understand some of the differences. For instance, a common phrase is number bonds. We used to call those math fact families. So we wanted something that would be informational. But beyond that, yes, we wanted something that would be beautiful. And I was very inspired by Mr. Rogers and the way in which there was beauty and simplicity. And he was able to speak to children in a manner that caused children to speak back to him. Mm-hmm. So we really tried to cultivate this with the videos. So for families who have the capability to sit down with their children and watch these videos, we think that the moms that we're having a test audience currently, we're hearing from moms that the moms are enjoying our videos also. Mrs. Hauser, Amy Hauser, is our kindergarten math teacher, and she's just darling. And so what we're finding is that the students are saying, can we watch another one? Can we watch another one? And so we are seeing that we're meeting our goal of making math interesting and fun, and children are getting their understanding. It is increasing as they're watching the videos, so they're developing their capabilities. And I feel like we're sort of starting a little math revolution where families across the world, right, because we're on the web, so anywhere in the world you can click and go, sit down with your child. But we also feel like these videos, the quality is so high that if mom needs, or dad or grandma needs to walk away, the child remains engaged with the teacher on the screen. We are seeing that children, if Miss Hauser says, I have an orange and a green and an orange, which color will come next? We are seeing that the children are shouting out to the screen as if they're in class with their teacher. So for families who have to walk away from the screen, they can still hear and monitor that the child sitting in front of the lesson is still engaged with the lesson and learning and going forward. And then, of course, if mom wants to sit down and have an enjoyable math time, we're finding that is something that's happening too.
That's so great. And so, you also have addressed some things like common struggles and best practices. So can you combine those two and just share with us, like, what are some common struggles for teaching little ones, even to elementary, and then some of your best practices to overcome that?
Yes. So, I mean, I think the greatest common struggle that we all have is that very few of us um, had dynamic math instruction when we were in school. So I meet with a lot of moms who have math anxiety. And so to sit down with your young child and teach math in a way that captures their heart is really challenging for a lot of families. Then we have people on the other end for whom math came easily, and using the algorithms or the steps and procedures to solving math for themselves makes perfect sense to them. That makes it really hard to instruct a young child who needs to be at a more concrete stage. And so I feel like this is a real challenge for homeschool families. And to be honest, I think it's a real challenge for many trained teachers who are within the classroom. I think it's a common struggle. And then I think some of the ways to overcome that, first of all, are to pay close attention to the kinds of learners you have before you. It may be that your first child learned math really easily and they didn't have any trouble at all. And then your second or your third, you're teaching them the very same way, and it just doesn't make sense. You're not unlocking the learning for them. So we feel like when you teach with concrete materials, all children can learn math well. Like there's not a math gene or a math brain. When you're using the kinds of materials that children can move around and compare and order, even when we get into numeracy, we're using materials that represent the numerals about which we're speaking. So children are developing a conceptual understanding. And so even children with learning disabilities or with like a numerical type of dysgraphia, dyscalculia, all children, when they have the materials in their hands, can learn and thrive in math.
Very good. Yeah, I've realized that too with kids that, maybe struggle with the reading portion and they're able to do the math or vice versa. So it's great to, and I love of everything you've said of how multisensory it is. Because I think that, that was ingrained with me. I had some Montessori and some other philosophies in my education as a teacher. And so those were just ingrained that just kids can do so much more and integrate that, and it becomes their own, learning, and then they start teaching others, once they've got, some of that with some of the modalities. And I think a lot of times, you're trying to explain things. I mean, for homeschool mommies, we try to get creative in so many different ways. I remember one of my children was struggling with addition and subtraction. I just took sheets of paper, 20, and wrote 1 through 20 and had him stand on the number 3 and then count up for whatever that was. And they were just like so thrilled and delighted, and I didn't have a laminator. And so of course those papers got squished under feet and dirty and in the pool and whatever else when we were outside trying to do this. But it showed me again, I needed to do more of this, and then we don't have time because we've got all this other stuff going on. And so it's wonderful to have programs like this. And so you guys started in one place or one school, and you said that, parents really wanted, as people were moving and things, they wanted to take you with them. And so explain how you started the Wisdom Wonder Project. And and also the Singapore Math,
Yeah. Okay. So the school where I teach, San Luis Obispo, so that's the town we're in, San Luis Obispo, and everybody just calls it SLO. So SLO Classical Academy. We started, I think, 14, 15 years ago. And as we've grown throughout the years, first of all, we have a lot of visitors to our school. We have, grandparents or aunts who come in from out of town, even educators who come to the school, but also periodically we have families who move away from our school. We've heard a repeated message, which is, I wish I could get your school wherever it is I'm going to. And we've had families be deployed militarily and even leave the country and wish that they could take our school with them. I will say that it's such a dynamic and really affirming place to learn and, to work, and we are learning all the time. So we have many teachers who have been with our school from the beginning, very experienced at developing curriculum, at finding the best materials out there. And so we began to think like there is a true need for an online digital homeschool company that addresses learning in the way that we have done it, which is developing excellent habits of the mind, really meeting, as you said, those foundational needs that children have when they're learning. So Wisdom Wonder was sort of an offshoot of what we are already doing. We see that it's working. We see that our teachers are really skilled at putting the curriculum together. And so we launched Wisdom Wonder Project, and we're getting great feedback about it, and really excited to be able to reach a wider audience, literally a worldwide audience, with excellent opportunities for teaching children at home. And I will say too, in regards to the Singapore math videos, one criticism of Singapore math is that you really need training to teach it well. And we have found that to be the case. We have spent years getting our teachers trained so that they can seamlessly teach Singapore math. Well, we want to make that available to people out there, because if you're a new homeschool mom or you're a homeschool family that's been doing it for a long time and you want to just jump in and adopt this program, it can feel really daunting. So we're trying to weave into the videos actual instruction for parents. Just by watching them, you're going to learn that one of the most important ways to teach your children is to encourage them to verbalize about their thinking, to imagine in their mind, to develop pictures in their minds as they're moving things around with their hands. We've all had the student who we say, "Hey, how did you solve that?" And the child says, "I don't know, I just got the answer." Well, if you start with some math, children are encouraged to talk about their thinking all along the way. And we have seen at Slow Classical Academy, kids all the way up into our high school and higher level math are successful at being able to explain their thinking, which means that when they come to complex problems they need to solve, they have the tools in their toolkit to think through, how do I approach this? And then they have multiple strategies, because that's built right into Singapore math, is try it this way, try it that way, try it one more way. Now teach a skeptic. Prove that to me. And yes, we just feel like it's such a dynamic way to learn math, and it helps children and even teachers fall in love with math. And that's what we're hoping for.
Wonderful. And we've talked a lot about the math, but I know that you sent me a sample of one of the lessons that was very literature focused, and it really was beautiful, because a lot of times when I look at these things, I'll say, gosh, is there not an original thought here? But you really walk the parents through the book, and a lot of the suggested activities and questions were very well thought out. And, I know you said you pulled from, some different principles of learning and foundational learning that, is going to circle back around, that really brings back the beauty in education. Because there's some of us, myself included, I call myself a lifelong learner. There isn't anything that I, feel like I have a handle on totally that we can't find some other beauty, even if you're reading in elementary or, little ones, a book geared for little ones. You can still see something that's, oh my gosh, I totally missed that. So I think that, I hear it in the name, Wisdom Wonder Project, as well as seeing it firsthand in the lesson that was sent to me to review. And, as you know, Lisa Ann, I don't do a lot of interviews with things that I don't believe in. So I'm really excited to share your vision and your wonderful curriculum with my audience. And hopefully, even if you don't have a younger child, you might be able to take some of the philosophy of learning that Lisa Ann has shared, as well as follow along with them, because you are going to be growing and sharing this with others that you might know who possibly benefit. So right now, I would really encourage you guys to go to wisdomwonderproject.org. Also look at their YouTube channel, youtube.com/Wisdom Wonder Project, and sign up for their emails for free lessons, because that is always and helpful to parents. So any last words to our listeners as we, conclude this? I feel like it's been a beautiful interview, with all of these, like I've already painted this picture. I'm a visual person anyway, so I've painted this picture of this beautiful, learning that takes place.
Yeah, I want to hit that last thing that you were speaking about in regards to the packets and to the literature. I really believe in reading aloud to our children. I want to throw in a great book. I don't know if you are familiar, or your audience. It's called the Read Aloud Handbook by Felice. And we really believe that a good book should be read aloud, not once, not twice, but often. And so with literature we're providing, really encourage families to do that. And that is one of the ways that we feel families pull their children of multiple ages together. And I've called this throughout the years of schooling with my kids, time on the sofa. And it's just, if everybody's at each other's throats, we're all in a house together currently, it is the best way to just calm everyone down, bring everyone together, time on the sofa, open up one of those beautiful literature books, and then the activities that are there to follow can easily be geared up or down based on the age of your children. You may be choosing something that's part of our pre-K curriculum, but we're hearing from families who are testing the program that it's very easy to gear it up or down. And I want to throw one last thing in about that. Recently, because our school has currently had to go online with the current quarantine in the nation, so all of our teachers are producing videos that our families can watch. And I produced one that is not geared towards my actual teaching level, which is 3rd and 4th. I read aloud a book called Roxaboxen, which is actually used in our kindergarten. And that went up on my YouTube channel. And I got a comment from a high schooler. He's a freshman who I've known his whole life. And he commented about this book, Roxaboxen. Like, cool, I love this book. And it just hit home for me how this beautiful literature just becomes a part of the lexicon of a child to be pulled out again and again and again. And we feel like the way the Wisdom Wonder Project packets are set up, that just becomes a natural part of how families will teach. And this gets to that heart of the beauty. We're using beautiful literature with meaningful, non-repetitious activities, lots of different kinds of choices to homeschool families. We think everyone will find something dynamic and beautiful. So I guess maybe it's where we can wrap up.
Yeah, I love that. And, I can really hear your heart for teaching and the love of kids. And maybe go ahead and send me that link to that reading that you had, and we'll share that as well with our audience. I think that would be really fun. So thank you for all that you're doing for the beauty of education, and also, to bring this curriculum to a worldwide audience. Possibly would not have had that opportunity unless they lived near you demographically. So thanks again for joining me. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on today, Felice. You can hear I really could talk all day about this stuff.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I really do appreciate the opportunity to do so with your wonderful audience. Thank you.
Oh gosh, thank you. And so friends, you can find show notes for today's episode at vintagehomeschoolmoms.com. Look for Foundation of Learning, and you'll see other links that Lisa Ann was sharing with me. So take care, God bless, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Visit Felice at MediaAngels.com and TheVintageHomeschoolMoms.com. Vintage Homeschool Moms is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.